Hello, and welcome to this lesson, which will provide you with an overview of the program execution stage of change management. After you have finished this lesson, you will be able to, firstly, understand what program execution is. Secondly, understand the key success factors in program execution. And thirdly, learn some of the main program execution tools and techniques. To begin with, let's remind ourselves of the change framework you covered in Lesson 1. The program execution part is the process that oversees all core change activity. It can also be referred to as program management, because it is where similar projects and initiatives are grouped together and prioritized. For example, cost-cutting or growth-led groups of initiatives. The process then allocates target milestones and outcomes, including any risks and interdependencies. This allows the PMO or Program Management Office to track progress and ensure that the overall change program is delivering on expectations. It also gathers the right level of reporting detail to be presented at the steering committee when needed. Program execution and project management are suited to different audiences and purpose, but can complement each other. Program execution is the process of managing several related projects and takes a more strategic perspective on change by always focusing on the big picture. Why change is needed, and for what cost and benefit. Internal engagement is usually with the organization's leadership team. By contrast, project management is the process of managing one individual project or initiative to achieve a planned objective, which could be defined in terms of outputs, outcomes, or benefits. The devil is in the detail, and internal engagement is usually with other project managers and initiative leads. The program execution process is the responsibility of the PMO. The process should be based on 4 best practice principles. Firstly, it should be forward-looking, meaning that the PMO should maximize the forward visibility and planning of all likely outcomes to ensure early, proactive management of risks. Secondly, it should be exception-based, meaning the PMO should focus only on the critical issues requiring senior input and effort, not all activities. Thirdly, effective program execution should have robust accountability, meaning it should apply clear and consistent rules across the whole program to limit subjectivity and debate. And fourthly, it should have minimum sufficiency, which means doing enough to succeed, but not more than necessary. These best practice principles can be applied to the program execution process, of which there are 4 key stages. Firstly, the PMO needs to ensure there is a robust governance structure in place. This will outline the main reporting lines for the program, the clear roles and expectations in ownership of the initiatives, and the frequency of team meetings. Secondly, after aligning the governance structure, the PMO then helps to plan and coordinate the various initiatives that will run across the program. Thirdly, and at program launch, the PMO then begins tracking and reporting how each of the initiatives are performing. And in the last stage, the PMO is responsible for the issue resolution process, which is about resolving risks, problems, and deviations from the original plan, perhaps due to unforeseen circumstances. The PMO will orchestrate the escalation of critical issues to the leadership team as and when required. Let's now look at each of these key project execution activities in more detail. Robust governance is the first stage in the program execution process. Roles and responsibilities for program participants should be defined, and individuals should be assigned to roles. The mandate of the PMO should be agreed, including its scope of activities, responsibilities, and resources required. When designing the overall governance structure, it is important not to over-engineer the structure, but to keep reporting lines simple and minimally sufficient. The ultimate test is that everyone involved should understand their roles and responsibilities. The second stage in the program execution process is to plan and coordinate all the initiatives using established tools and techniques. This can be done in 3 steps. The first step is to frame the work, which means developing a charter for each initiative, which helps to organize teamwork and deliverables. The charter will outline the objectives of the initiative, key targets, and what will be delivered by when. Quick wins and any interdependencies with other teams can also be included in the charter. The next step is to create high-level initiative plans, which are more detailed than initiative charters. The plans allocate roles and target owners, scope out the work needed, and quantify the expected impact. The plan should also highlight any risks that will need to be managed. And the last step is to pressure test your initiative planning by playing devil's advocate and rigorously asking whether the initiative plans are clearly defined, logically structured, and will provide the desired benefits. Let's look at some examples of these tools and techniques. This slide shows an example of an initiative charter template, which is a tool often used to win senior sponsor approval for your project. In such a template, you would normally provide an overview of the goals of the initiative, together with key objectives, targets, deliverables, and dates. Adding some quick wins would be beneficial if your initiative is planned to run for several months, and adding interdependencies highlights the influence your project has with other teams around the organization. This slide shows the first page of an initiative plan, which is qualitative in nature and summarizes lines of accountability, what is in and out of scope, risk mitigation, and any financial assumptions. There should ideally be one person owning an initiative plan, and the level of detail should be appropriate for executive review, which means providing enough detail to inform, but not more than necessary. The second page of an initiative plan should be more quantitative in nature and highlight the key milestones and impacts to measure success and risk. An example is shown in the slide. Milestones are major deliverables, outcomes or activities to be completed by a defined deadline, and impacts can be financials or KPIs. You would normally see 20 to 30 critical milestones and impacts in a plan, each tied to the project's most important value drivers and risks. The last step in initiative planning focuses on rigor testing, which is really about pressure testing your plans to reduce any risks. Rigor testing ensures that important questions are asked and answered up front. For example, is the initiative plan clearly defined, logically structured, and readily implementable? Do we know who's doing what and our interactions with others? Are the impacts and expected timings clearly identified? Are we measuring adequately whether we are on track? Leadership sponsors should set aside at least 1 hour to rigor test each of their initiatives. Rigor testing can also be used to test some of the more qualitative measures around the project, such as assessing the team's commitment to change and the additional amount of local effort that may be required during implementation. After initiative plans have been finalized, focus should then shift to diligent tracking and reporting. The purpose of tracking is to freeze the values in the plan, set up a tool to track performance against milestones, and to identify any performance gaps and early indicators of risk. Reporting to executive sponsors and the steering committee creates visibility through exception-based reporting. In other words, they are informed of only what really matters and what is required to achieve targets. There are different approaches to tracking. Dedicated road mapping software exists from companies like Roadmonk, but can incur high monthly usage fees. More cost-effective and readily available project and program plan templates exist via Excel or Microsoft Project software. When a change program is about to launch, it is good practice to host a launch workshop with the steering committee, initiative leaders, and the PMO. Here, participants would review the program vision, the aggregated impact of all initiatives, and discuss any potential risks and how to mitigate them. This is also an excellent opportunity to reinforce the senior leadership team's focus on the program. The fourth and final stage in the program execution process is issue resolution. This is the resolution process by which the PMO identifies and resolves critical issues that may be affecting the program's ability to succeed. An issue tracker allows the PMO to capture all issues during the duration of the program. The issue tracker tracks all open issues, requires team members to provide a resolution plan and due date, and helps to identify issues that require greater intervention, so the PMO can escalate accordingly. The tracker also serves as a source of evidence that greater resources may be needed to succeed. You should encourage initiative plan owners to identify and resolve any issues and risks themselves. Any unresolved issues are to be escalated up through the executive sponsors, then to the steering committee, and as a last resort, the CEO. To summarize this lesson on program execution, you have learnt that change programs need structured management to succeed, based on a forward-looking, quantified path to impact achievement. You need to rigorously apply the 4 main stages of program execution and apply the 4 best practice principles around forward planning, managing by exception, enforcing accountability, and doing just enough to succeed. Thank you for participating, and see you next time on another exciting business training lesson from Pontema.